Hi, I'm Gary with Raw Dog Hawaii. Thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to learn how your dog processes kibble. So let's get a little bit of background information first. There are three categories of all animals. First is herbivores, like a cow, that only eat grasses and plants. Second, carnivores, like a dog, cat, wolf, or coyote, that only eat meat. And omnivores, like humans, we can eat vegetables, fruits, meats, nuts, just about anything. So I think it's important to understand that each species has evolved to eat specific types of foods to stay as healthy as possible. So each of their systems are designed and specifically tuned for diets and are at their best when they eat their own individual diets. Okay, all food is grouped into one of three categories. We have proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And each category of animal or each species requires some or all of these groups. Now I'm going to skip over herbivores right now. One, because that can be an audio all its own. But second, because we need to understand what dogs need. And I'm going to have to touch on some of the differences between carnivores and omnivores, specifically dogs and humans. So, proteins, that's the whole lean muscle of an animal. So, think a standing rib roast or a ribeye steak, a chicken leg, a chicken wing. All those lean muscles are attached to the bones of the animal. So that's how we know what and where a protein is. Fats are a natural oily or greasy substance that occurs in animal bodies, especially when deposited as a layer under the skin or around certain organs. So we'll see fats attached to proteins like a steak, and it's generally, and it should be, white in color. So of the three food categories, carbohydrates are the main issue with carnivores. A carbohydrate, the grouping carbohydrate, is made up of starches and sugars. Carbohydrates, when converted to sugars, are a natural source of energy. Think of a starch like a chain, and each link of the chain is a sugar molecule or glucose. And like a chain, they are all held together, and that long piece of chain is called a starch. Now when a starch gets broken down, or we unlink the chain, it converts that starch into a bunch of sugar molecules. Sugar is what can be digested by an animal and then converted to energy. Here's how it works in a human, and don't worry, this is not a complicated science class. So when a human starts to chew on a starch, like a piece of bread or white rice, humans have an enzyme in their saliva that breaks the starch chains and leaves us with sugars. And then when we swallow, the sugars go into our stomach. Some sugars get used immediately for energy by our muscles. The other, the residual, we have an enzyme called insulin that we produce, and what that does is prevent our blood sugar levels from getting too high. Insulin controls the amount of blood sugar in our body. When our body breaks down the proteins, the fats, and the starches in a human, they're all in a usable form for us for energy resource. Carnivores, like dogs and cats, they lack that starch converting enzyme in their saliva. So what that means for them is the starch, that chain, never gets broken down into individual sugars. So when they swallow, the whole starch chain winds up in their stomach. So here's the problem. Dry and canned dog food contains proteins, fats, and they also contain carbohydrates like brown rice or sweet potatoes and oatmeal. Those are great and they sound great for a human diet, but unfortunately they are not good for dogs, because when a dog eats them, those starches stay starches. They never become sugars, so they're never a source of energy for the dog. A dog has a very acidic stomach, much more acidic than ours. So when that starch hits the dog's stomach, it immediately starts to ferment instead of being digested. And remember, a dog can't physically digest starches. Animals can only digest sugars. That's humans and dogs. So when the starches ferment in the dog's stomach, they actually change form. They start coming out of a dog's body in different ways. One of the ways is your dog passes gas. And if your dog has gas, it stinks, but it's also a result of that fermenting starch in their stomach. That converted fermented starch also comes out of other places. It comes out with the dog's sweat through their sweat glands. Dogs only sweat from their nose and their mouth. That's why when they get hot outside they start panting. But it also comes out through small sweat glands in their feet. Because it comes out of their mouth, that's why their breath stinks, just like the gas stinks. When it comes out through the sweat glands in their feet, a fungus starts to grow and feeds on it. When that happens, your dog's feet start to itch. So the dog licks it and starts chewing on it to try to make it stop. So sometimes you'll see a dog walking around with a cone on its head, and the owner said, well, my dog wouldn't stop licking and chewing its feet, so we had to put a cone on the dog. Imagine you have your hands tied behind your back and you have mosquito bites on your arms and on your legs. They're itching like crazy, but you can't scratch them. I mean, it's maddening. Think how it must be for the dog. Unfortunately, those fermented starches don't stop there, because they also come out with oils through the skin, including the oily wax that's in the dog's ears. A fungus will also grow there in the ears, and that's why you'll have the blackness inside a dog's ears, and that's why their ears are stinky. So no matter how much you clean them, or whatever antibiotic or fungicide or drops that you give to the dog, that fungus is going to relentlessly keep coming back. When the starches come out with the oils on the skin, it causes hot spots and rashes. The reason why is a dog's pores are designed to process oils. They aren't designed to process fermented starches. And it's also the reason that your dog, right after you give it a bath, smells like a wet, stinky dog. And that smell won't go away no matter how much perfume or scent is in the shampoo. No matter which kibble or prescription food that contains a starch that you give to the dog to eat, the problems will not go away. And it's all because of the starches that are contained in those foods. In the next video, I'm going to explain how a dog processes a raw food diet, and you'll start to understand what they need to eat to be healthy and allergy-free. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.